Hello to all. And the previous video we talked about the SQL injection, and we saw how the SQL vulnerability lead to the SQL injection attack. So in this video we mostly talk about the prevention methods, how we can prevent SQL injection attack, what are the security measures we have to be adopt to prevent the SQL injection attack. So to avoid that thing, we have to perform some sanitization. We have to restrict the access, and as we seen the combination of SQL query which is having code and data, so we try to avoid that particular thing. Basically, if we see the structure of SQL query, basically we use in a programming language that we are simply putting the query, select asterisk from the table name and where condition, where this query is having some user input, and that user input will become the major thread or the major point where the attacker can get inside. Okay, so prevention of that thing, we have to validate the input. That means we have to perform certain checks whenever we do that thing. The length of the input, we should restrict how much length people can put. We have to sanitize some special characters. That means we can't allow special characters to be entered from the keyboard, like the apostrophes, symbol, semicolon, dash dash. Okay, but in that thing, in some languages or in some countries, apostrophes or some special symbols come into the text, like the Peter or corner, as you seen in the example. So in that case, we can especially mention that these characters are allowed, but not all. So that's why the SQL queries are not accepting these things right now these days. Okay, and if things are coming like the apostrophe, the semicolon, so in a programming we can put a slash over there, because if you put a slash before the special character, it will become a character. If you want to write something in a special character, we have to give the backslash and the character name. Then it doesn't have that much effect. It will treat as a simple character. So we can replace these problematic character with the safe one. Okay, and if it's possible, we can keep the things in a variable and sanitize the thing, verify the thing. Okay, and then we allow them to the machine. So we have to check the user input, that is integer within the right range. Character should be the character range. User do not put any special character which is not allowed. Okay, give an invalid input, save to reject, then to fix. If the input is not correct, just discard them. Okay, and but in this process may have some downfall, because we exactly know what people are putting into the password. Mostly the password is the combination of the all special characters and something, but you can restrict that. You can't use semicolon into the password or something like that. But username, you can definitely restrict. People can use some character and number combination, but password is a thing that we can't restrict, because for the security purpose we ask the user to go with the tougher combination. But you can verify that thing it is not containing the malicious word, or it's better we have used a prepared statement. In a programming side or the SQL side, there is one prepared statement is there. So in that prepared statement, what happened? We simply ask the user to put the variable name, and in the query we are writing question mark instead of writing the whole variable. We simply keep the question marks over there, and then we bind that question mark later on. Okay, and then we perform the execution. So this thing will definitely not come as a whole query. So you can where specifically decouple the things and compile the things before binding data. You can check what is coming to that variable, and then you allow, if it's valid, then you can allow it. That is one way. So if you perform the prepared statement and people are giving something wrong in it, so it will not effect, because the if you see in the previous example, the binding variable name is coming into the name part, and end part can't be hide through the comment variable, because comment variable should go to the name only. If you see this example, so the name is containing frank apostrophe or 1 is equal to 1 semicolon dash dash. That thing will affect only the name part. Rest part will remain safe. So this thing will mislead the concept, and the error should generate, because the comment will not work over there, because this is go for the separate variable and password is coming from the separate variable. So that effect is not happening. So the prepared statement have that much benefit we can use. And we also use a mitigation technique. That means we also always validate the input, limit the privilege. Okay, if we limit the privilege, so that will reduce the power of exploitation. So we can limit the number of characters command that we access to the query, and encrypt the sensitive data. For example, if your things coming to the password or some maybe form, you can encrypt into the table, so nobody can see directly or nobody can use that thing directly. Okay. So these things are the prevention measure. If you use these particular kind of thing, definitely we can avoid the SQL injection thing. Now these days SQL injection were not very much popular or not happening very frequently, but it is still a vulnerability, because if you miss that thing, that means if you are a new programmer and you are using the old style of programming, everything you write in a single query, so it is impossible to track them. So attacker can use that thing. Sometimes attacker tries to that thing. If they succeed, they will definitely get easily. But in the commercial development side, people are avoiding that thing. So SQL injection is not so much dangerous now these days, or they use some different things to perform the database breach. We will discuss that thing. But like the web-based state using hidden field and cookies, they can use the websites, because as we discussed, the website is the only source to catch up your information, your data, your secure information. Since HTTP is a stateless protocol, so the lifetime of an HTTP session is typically depend on the connection of the client, and it will never remember the past stages. It means what happened into the past pages. So to manage that particular thing, the systems are the web browsers are using the cookies. Okay, so cookies will store various kind of information. Whenever we are trying to maintain the things, the browser will send the request and server will send the response. The web application maintain various thing in between, but this processing doesn't have an asset property. So every time whenever client want to be communicate, it has to be sent some user important information. Okay, and that information maybe go with the in the terms of the hidden fields, or in terms of cookies. So on the basis of these field or the cookies, the server knows, okay, what is the previous thing and from where the connection is coming. For example, in the online ordering, okay, so once you click on the order and the next page is coming, so that page is containing the total cost 5.50. It is moving from one page to another page through the variable. That means inside the programming we are writing if order is this one and transfer that page to another one. Then we click on the yes. As well as your cookie will store the preferences on that particular site, what order you chooses. And the hidden field will contain the amount that we are transferring from one page to the another page. Mostly banking transaction happening in that way. Okay. So other side, if we say the code of the page, so in the online ordering, what happened? Basically, if you see the input type hidden, that means this field is not visible. Its name is price and value is 5.50. Whenever we move from one page to another page, this field price should be used to figure out how much you selected. So once you press the submit button, okay, then this button will send the information of hidden page. with the code. So the online order form will see if you click on the button, there is the name of the button, and price is not equal to null. That means something is happening. Then it will bill for the candidate, for the particular candidate, and the rest thing will be performing later on. Okay, but in the online ordering, what happened if you can change the cookie, or the attacker have no information, have the information, they can modify that thing slightly if they have a right. So if they change the value in somehow, because client can change the value, and this value will go through by clicking, that means this value doesn't have a server thing related to it, it is available on to the client page. So if client change that value from 0.01, so definitely your logic is going to be failed. So without paying anything, they can achieve. That is again a kind of vulnerability or the database breaches. That is not the SQL injection, but it is a database vulnerability or database breach. That means we are trying to modify the value which is available into the client page. If we see earlier, the value is 5.50. Okay, so that means if you want to be collect that, want to be buy that shoes, you press yes. So the price value will go to 5.50. But if client have that sufficient information how to validate or change the thing, and he can change the value 0.01, that means he is paying nothing, but he is getting that particular socks. So that is again a database breach, database security. Okay, so that is a vulnerability. So how the things we can perform, what is the solution for that thing? So the solution is that thing we have to be restrict the capabilities of the client. If we are running a business, so the server store the immediate state and it send the capability or to access that state of a client. Client reference the capability in subsequent process. Client shouldn't allow to do the change. That change should be reflected with the server only. That means once you click on that, information go to the server and server will match the actual value. The value of stocks is 5.50, but the new value is 0.01. That is mismatch. So instead of logic that is putting over here price is not equal to null, instead of that server should check what is the price of the stocks exactly. If you are doing this thing as a programming flaw, this is the programming flaw, logical flaw. This is not a vulnerability, but it is a flaw. Due to that flaw, the owner or vendor should suffer. Okay, so sometimes now these days the people are not looking for the passing the hidden information field around all the times, because it is difficult to maintain the things, because server the HTTP doesn't have a state management, so they don't know what is in the previous page, what order you selected. It is just moving through the hidden information. Okay, so the server exactly don't know whether it's a SOC or it is something else. Maybe you can change the product item also. If you know the deliver socks, what is contained in the deliver socks, you can change the product item also. So that thing also possible. So it's up to the how much your analysis power, how much you can do with the coding. You can easily perform the malicious things. So to prevention of malicious things are very much challenging sometimes, because the attacker have to do little thing, but the coder have to do lot of the things. So how to manage the statefulness with cookies? So definitely that's why they're using the cookies. That means the server knows what actually client did. Because whenever you serve some pages, you select something, that particular website will save some data in your machine in the form of cookie, like your ID, password, your choice, fixing, colors, etc., and try to maintain that trusted state. So server sends cookie to the client which store in it. Server will figure out the cookie and see, and client return with subsequent query to the same server. Cookies are basically just a key value pair. So what you are doing, and this contains some date information, and it has a one expiration time whenever cookie will expire. Okay. So the user is in desktop. there are various certain things cookies will contain. Basically, it store use for the customer's information. That's why server will validate about your things, about your preferences, your choices, and the various other things. So cookie will have the rights or the power that they can go to see your private data, your private information. Okay, so if you think the things are going to be malicious, first you have to clear the cookies, because cookies are very much dangerous if you are not handling properly. If it is a legal everything, then it is a useful for us. It will save the password and everything. Okay, so why we use cookie? First is the session identifier. Okay, after a user has authenticated, subsequent action provide a cookie, so the user does not have to authenticate each time. Personalization things should happen. That means you can change the background color and settings just because as per your requirement. Cookies always tracking the user's advertisement, what you want, what you're looking for the website. So whenever you go for the new website, the things look like comes same way. For example, in the Amazon.com, if you search for the shoes or some for the new dress or something, and if you go to some other website like the Facebook, so suddenly the same kind of advertisement will come into your Facebook page. Whatever you're looking for the Amazon, whatever you're looking for the Flipkart, just because of cookies, because they know what thing you are going to be seen. So that you can think this is a dangerous again, because if the attacker or adversaries know that thing and they can use that cookie, they know your detailed cookie will store your ID, password, bank detail, everything stored over there. So they can use that thing and try to modify the things, and malicious things should come in a different ways. So this is the one way or one fundamental thing that people can use. Okay, so this is another way to perform the database, to breach the database security. Using the cookie or using the web-based things, we can perform the things. Okay, so this is the one. Another kind of thing, the security breach that we can discuss, that is the XREF or the CSS thing. But before leaving this, do you have any idea about the cookies, how cookies are used and why we are using cookies? Kamafi, do you have any idea about cookies? Okay, that's fine. Another way of stealing the data from the database, that is the cross-site request forgery. That is another way. That means you have some URLs which is having some side effect. For example, bank.com, something transfer is happening, and as a variable we can pass the things, the amount, ID, password. So the web URL uses basically two different methods. One is the get and one is the post. If we go with the get method, what happens? All the variables or information that we have, we can pass that information to the URL. So get request have a side effect, that means all the things are visible to everyone. You can see what ID and password you are passing, what amount you are passing. So if you are logging something into the cookie or something, you can request the issue for the link, and that variables is going with the name of the URL. People can easily figure out. Okay, so through your bank account, the attacker.com, the things are going on. So instead of bank, that link will go to the another place, because attacker have the information of about your ID, password through your cookies, because browser automatically visit the URL to obtain what it believe will be an image. this previous one. The 2 is equal to attacker is over there. Maybe some image is there and you clicked on that. So the information of your cookies should transfer to the attacker, the other website. You thought you are doing the communication with the bank, but here if you see the URL, it is look like that the bank.com transfer.cgi amount 999 at to attacker. So bank will transfer that amount to attacker, and you will get the message from the attacker itself. Okay, transfer success. And while clicking something else and your cookies are not secure, you are losing money, losing lot of money. They have control in your account and they can steal the information. That is again a database breach. These are the advancement of the breaches that people are using now these days. Okay, so the cross-site request forgeries basically is talking about the tricks, how they perform the things. The main things comes into this is the target. Target means a user who has an account on a vulnerable server. If your bank have a vulnerability, you may be the victim of that particular attack. Attacker's goal is very much simple. They are looking for the money. They are looking for something valuable from your side. So they may request to the server via the user browser to look the server like the user independent to make them. Attackers use the link. They provide the link and ask you to click on that link, and that link will redirect them to somewhere else. Okay, and whatever the link they are providing, they give the link in the form of images. So you thought it's a simple image, but once you click on that image, it's automatically click on the link. So the browser will set the referral field to this particular page that hosted the clicked link. What is the cross-ref protection about that? So it will create the referral pages. That means it is coming from where. And trust request from the pages a user couldn't legitimate reach. That means if the good user is there, so you don't need to worry. They can perform the things. If the referral is not over there, so your server will block that thing. That means if it is not passing the connection authenticity, the referral code, or the web checking is there. If the web checking is not happening, something, if you see the browser, there is a I symbol is written before the files. If you click on the I, it will open in something. That means it will ask for the server side scripting, and then server will verify the things. So it is coming from the genuine server or not. Okay, but referring thing should be the optional. It is not included by all the browsers because sometimes it has some legal issues and people are not referring this thing. Maybe some reference is not happening, so it is perform the bouncing, and it is not working for all the sites, and it will suffer from the man in the middle network attack. Okay, so some website response, it generates additional overhead for the websites, and man in the middle will steal the packet and figure out who is the referral. They can use that referral for the other purposes also, so you maybe lose that thing. The another way for this cross-site referencing is the secretize the link. That means you can include one hidden field in the HTTP header whenever you are communicating, and it is not be guessable. You can write something like the ID and password kind of thing. Okay, so that thing again verify, like the hash you can provide, and the server will verify whether it is coming from your machine or it's coming from some different machine. So that type of things we can use to prevent the database security breaches. The database security breaches have a various kind of variety. People are using that thing. Okay, maybe sometimes perform through the SQL injection, sometimes the cross-site referencing, sometimes the vulnerability available into the database, and things. So that is again thing. One more scenario that can happen is the how to prevent the database security. So people are using the honey tokens. I think all are aware about the honey tokens. Honey tokens are just the fake currency kind of thing. Suppose I have a data set with the 100 and 200 thousands of information records are there. So in thousands of record, I am adding some, let's suppose 10% or 20% fake record over there. So 1000 will become 1100 or 1200. Okay, in a random portion, not exactly in a fixed portion, a fixed time of interval, in a random time interval, and they tokens are pre-calculated. That means the owner knows where are the fake tokens, but they look like the real one. For example, the credit card numbers, they look like the real credit card number. If people are stealing or trying to modify the database, okay, mostly the honey token will prevent the modification kind of thing, or you check whether somebody modified the data or deleted or inserted something or not. So data breaches will solve with the help of honey token. So if somebody try to modify it, definitely they will modify some of the honey tokens also. Okay, if the people are genuine legal, they will do their assigned work, so they can't modify the thing. But other than administrator, if somebody modifies, they can definitely modify the honey tokens also. So instead of checking all thousands record, the administrator should check only the 100 200 tokens. If the tokens are generated correctly or they are correct, they have correct information, that means you don't need to check all the information, it is definitely correct. So that is another kind of way to prevent the data. Okay, so there are various ways. Basically now these days security is growing up and the black hat community is also growing up. As you know, as we discussed earlier, this is the cat dog kind of fight. Every time the attacker are looking for the new methods, and the white hat people should avoid, should be proactive and try to understand the things and save their organization from these type of attack and everything. So that is again an important one. Okay, so that is fine. This is